The house is still. Morning sunlight spills quietly across the kitchen floor, and your dog's food bowl is exactly where you left it the night before. You hear the familiar creak of the stairs as you walk down, almost expecting the sound you've heard 1,000 mornings before, the quick rhythm of paws rushing to greet you. But today, there's only silence. You find your dog lying in the doorway, watching you with the same gentle eyes you've loved for years. Their tail moves. Just once. They try to stand, then settle back down again. Nothing dramatic has happened. Nothing that would make you panic. And yet, something deep inside you whispers that today feels different. The hardest goodbyes rarely begin with a single heartbreaking moment. They begin with changes so small, so quiet, that we convince ourselves they're simply part of getting older. But what if those quiet changes are not random? What if they're your dog's final way of saying, "Please understand me while I'm still here"? Dogs don't have words to tell us when their bodies are growing tired. Instead, they speak through their eyes, their routines, the places they choose to rest, and the way they stay close to the people they love. In this video, we'll explore 7 heartbreaking signs that veterinarians, canine behavior experts, and animal hospice caregivers often recognize in dogs approaching the final chapter of life, not to fill you with fear, but to help you give your best friend the one thing they may need most before it's too late, your understanding. And stay with us until the final sign, because it isn't the saddest one. It's the one that reminds us what love truly looks like when words are no longer needed. Sign has shown they begin choosing quiet places. Have you ever walked through your home calling your dog's name, only to realize they aren't in any of their usual places, not by the front door waiting for you, not curled up beside the couch, not following behind you from room to room like they've done for years? Instead, you find them tucked beneath the dining table, resting in the corner of a quiet bedroom, or lying on the cool bathroom floor where they almost never used to sleep. At first, it feels confusing. You might even smile and think, they're just being a little strange today. But sometimes, this quiet change carries a much deeper message. As dogs grow weaker or begin approaching the final stage of life, many instinctively seek environments that feel calmer, cooler, and free from constant stimulation. Veterinary hospice specialists often observe this behavior in dogs receiving end-of-life care. When energy becomes limited, the body naturally tries to conserve what little strength remains. Bright lights can feel harsher. Loud sounds become more tiring. Even everyday activity inside a loving home can become overwhelming. This doesn't mean your dog wants to leave you. Quite the opposite. It often means they're searching for a place where their body can finally rest without having to keep up with the busy world around them. If you notice this change, resist the urge to keep calling them back into the center of the house. Instead, go to where they are. Bring a soft blanket. Sit quietly on the floor beside them. You don't have to fill the silence with words. For many aging dogs, your calm presence is far more comforting than conversation. Sometimes they'll close their eyes, knowing you're there. Sometimes they'll simply breathe a little easier because they no longer have to choose between resting and staying close to the person they love most. Perhaps the greatest act of love in that moment isn't asking your dog to come back to you. It's being willing to meet them exactly where they are. Sign #2. Food stops mattering more than your presence. One evening, you prepare dinner exactly the way you always have. The familiar sound of kibble pouring into the bowl echoes through the kitchen. For years, that sound was almost magical. Your dog would appear from anywhere in the house, tail wagging, eyes bright, sometimes even dancing in little circles before taking the first bite. But tonight, the bowl sits untouched. Your dog slowly walks over, lowers their nose for just a moment, then quietly looks up at you instead. No excitement, no impatience, just a long, gentle glance that seems to ask for something different. At first, it's easy to assume they're simply being picky. Maybe they don't like this batch of food. Maybe their stomach feels upset. Maybe tomorrow they'll eat normally again. And sometimes that's exactly what's happening. But when a senior dog consistently loses interest in food, especially a food they've loved for years, it deserves careful attention. Veterinarians who specialize in geriatric and palliative care explain that as a dog's body begins preparing for the final stage of life, its priorities gradually change. The digestive system often slows down because the body is conserving energy for its most essential functions. Appetite naturally decreases, and eating can become physically tiring or even uncomfortable. This is why many dogs nearing the end of life eat smaller meals, become unusually selective, or stop asking for food altogether. What often surprises owners is this: even when food no longer interests them, you still do. Many dogs who turn away from a full bowl will gladly accept a few tiny pieces of chicken from your hand. Others may refuse their meal completely but rest their head against your knee while you sit beside them. They're not choosing hunger, they're choosing comfort. If you begin noticing this change, don't turn every mealtime into a battle. Avoid forcing food or becoming frustrated if they only eat a few bites. Instead, speak with your veterinarian to rule out treatable medical problems and discuss ways to keep your dog comfortable. Offer small portions of soft, highly palatable foods if recommended. Let them eat at their own pace, and if they prefer taking food gently from your hand, allow that quiet ritual to become part of your time together. In these moments, nourishment isn't measured only by calories. It's measured by safety, by patience, by love shared without pressure. Because near the end of life, your dog may no longer remember every meal they ate, but they'll never stop remembering how it felt to be cared for by the person they trusted most. Sign #3. Their eyes begin, saying things words never could. There may come a day when your dog looks at you, and you suddenly forget whatever you were about to do. You're holding their leash, or folding laundry, or making coffee. Then you notice they're watching you, not because they want to go outside, not because they're asking for dinner, not because they expect you to throw a ball. They're simply looking at you. The moment lasts only a few seconds, but somehow it feels much longer. Their eyes seem softer than before, quieter, almost as if they're trying to memorize your face. Many owners struggle to describe this moment later. They don't say their dog's eyes looked sad. They don't even say they looked sick. Instead, they often say something much harder to explain. It felt like they were trying to tell me something. That feeling isn't simply imagination. Researchers studying the bond between dogs and humans have discovered that prolonged, gentle eye contact triggers the release of oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, in both dogs and their owners. This remarkable feedback loop strengthens attachment and reinforces the emotional connection between the two of you. Even as an aging dog's body begins to weaken, this quiet exchange can remain one of the strongest ways they communicate safety, trust, and affection. As dogs approach the final chapter of life, they often become less interested in the busy world around them. There are fewer games, fewer adventures, less excitement over the things that once filled every day. But one thing often remains remarkably important: the person they love. Sometimes those long, peaceful gazes aren't asking you to fix anything. They're simply choosing to spend their remaining energy connecting with the face that has always made them feel safe. If your dog begins holding your gaze a little longer than they used to, don't rush past the moment. Sit down beside them, stroke their ears slowly, speak in the calm voice they've known their entire life. You don't need to find perfect words. They've never loved you because you always knew what to say. They loved you because you were there. One day, you'll probably forget the toys you bought, the treats you picked, even the exact routes of your daily walks. But you'll never forget the way your dog looked at you when the room was completely quiet. Because sometimes the deepest conversation you'll ever have with your best friend happens without either of you saying a single word. Sign #4. Simple movements become quiet. Acts of courage. One afternoon, you grab your keys. Your dog hears the familiar sound. For years, that tiny jingle meant only one thing: a walk. They would leap to their feet before you even reached the door, tail wagging wildly, paws tapping excitedly across the floor. Today, they still try. They push themselves up, but it takes a little longer. Their back legs hesitate. They pause halfway, gathering strength before taking another step. You notice they stop at the stairs, staring at them for a moment, as if they're trying to remember when climbing them became so difficult. It's a small change. So small that many families simply call it old age. But sometimes, it's something more. Veterinary specialists who care for senior dogs explain that one of the most significant changes near the end of life is a gradual decline in mobility. While healthy aging often brings stiffness that improves once a dog starts moving, advanced illness, or the final stage of life, can affect muscle strength, balance, and coordination. Weakness in the hind legs is especially common. Making simple movements, standing up, turning around, climbing stairs, or stepping onto a favorite couch feels surprisingly demanding. The heartbreaking part is this: Your dog usually doesn't stop trying. They still want to follow you. They still want to greet you at the door. They still want to be wherever you are. Their heart hasn't slowed down. Only their body has. This is why patience becomes one of the greatest gifts you can offer. If you notice your dog struggling with movements that once came easily, don't encourage them to push through it. Instead, make the world easier for them. Place non-slip rugs on smooth floors so they don't lose their footing. Move their bed closer to the room where your family spends time so they don't have to walk as far just to be near you. If they can no longer climb onto the sofa, sit beside them on the floor instead of asking them to come up to you. And if they need help getting into the car or climbing a few steps, support them gently without making them feel rushed. To you, these may seem like small adjustments. To your dog, they mean everything. Because love isn't measured by how many adventures you can still share. Sometimes, it's measured by how willing you are to slow your own pace until it matches theirs. In the end, your dog won't remember whether they reach the top of every staircase. They'll remember something far more important, that every difficult step they took, they never had to take alone. Sign #5. The things that once brought them joy no longer do. One Saturday morning, you reach for the leash. The moment your dog hears the familiar click of the metal clasp, they lift their head. For years, that single sound was enough to fill the entire house with excitement. They would spin in happy circles, race to the front door. Sometimes they couldn't even wait for you to put your shoes on. But today, they simply watch. Their tail gives a slow wag. They take a few careful steps toward you, then stop. The leash is still there. The door is still open. The adventure is still waiting. Yet somehow, the urgency is gone. A few minutes later, you roll their favorite tennis ball across the floor. It comes to a gentle stop right in front of them. Once, they would have chased it before it even finished rolling. Now, they lower their nose toward it, sniff it softly, and rest their head back on the floor. For many owners, this is one of the most painful moments to witness. Not because their dog is in obvious pain, but because the little rituals that once defined their personality begin to quietly fade away. Veterinary behaviorists describe this change as anhedonia, a reduced ability to experience pleasure from activities that once felt rewarding. As the body grows weaker and energy becomes increasingly limited, the brain naturally shifts its priorities. Excitement gives way to conservation. A game that once felt thrilling may now require more effort than the body can comfortably give. But here's something important to remember. This doesn't mean your dog has stopped enjoying life. It simply means joy has changed its shape. The long walk may no longer matter, but lying beside you while the afternoon sun warms the porch still might. The game of fetch may be over, but listening to your voice while you gently stroke their ears can still bring them peace. The greatest mistake we can make is trying to recreate yesterday's happiness. Instead, learn to discover today's. If your dog no longer wants to chase the ball, don't keep throwing it. If they tire after only a few minutes outside, let the walk become shorter without feeling guilty. Sit beside them beneath a tree. Let them sniff the breeze. Let them pause for as long as they want. Allow them to experience the world at the slower rhythm their body now needs. Sometimes, the most meaningful moments require almost no movement at all. One quiet afternoon, one gentle touch, one familiar voice. These simple things can become more valuable than all the adventures you've ever shared, because as the end of life draws closer, your dog isn't counting how many games are left. They're noticing something far more important, that even when they could no longer run beside you, you never stopped choosing to stay beside them. Sign #6, they begin seeking you in ways they never did before. One evening, you're sitting quietly on the couch. The television is on, but neither of you is really paying attention. Your dog slowly walks over, not with the excitement they once had, not carrying a toy, not asking to go outside. They simply come close enough to rest their head against your leg. No barking, no whining, no request. Just contact. A few minutes pass. You gently scratch behind their ears, and instead of walking away as they usually would, they stay exactly where they are. Their breathing slows. Their eyes close. For a little while, the whole world seems to disappear. Many families notice a similar change during the final weeks or months of a dog's life. A dog that was once wonderfully independent suddenly wants to remain in the same room all day. They quietly follow you from the kitchen to the living room. They wait outside the bathroom door. If you leave the room, they slowly get up and come after you, not because they're anxious, but because being close has become more important than doing anything else. Some owners wonder if their dog has become unusually needy, but often, what they're really seeing is something much deeper. Researchers studying the attachment bond between dogs and their primary caregivers have found that dogs rely on trusted humans as a secure emotional base throughout their lives. Just as young children naturally seek comfort from a parent when they feel vulnerable, aging dogs often seek greater physical closeness when their bodies become weaker or the world around them feels less predictable. As their strength fades, your presence becomes one of the few things that never changes. Your voice is still familiar. Your scent is still home. Your touch still tells their nervous system, you're safe. This is why some dogs become surprisingly affectionate near the end of life. They may gently lean against your legs, rest their head on your chest, sleep with one paw touching your foot, or quietly watch you from across the room, making sure they know exactly where you are. These moments are easy to overlook because they don't ask for attention. They simply ask for closeness. If your dog begins staying near you more than ever before, try not to brush those moments aside because you're busy. Sit on the floor instead of always sitting in a chair. If they lean against you, let them stay there a little longer. If they fall asleep with their head in your lap, resist the urge to move simply because your leg has gone numb. Speak to them softly. Stroke them slowly. Put your phone away. There will always be another email, another chore, another television show. But these quiet moments, they don't come back. One day, you'll realize that your dog wasn't asking you to solve anything. They weren't asking for another game, or another long walk, or another perfect day. They were asking for something beautifully simple, to spend whatever time remained exactly where they had always felt safest, right beside you. Sign #7, the last look they give you. There is a moment that thousands of dog owners remember with astonishing clarity. Years may pass. The toys may be packed away. The leash may no longer hang by the front door. Yet this one moment never fades. It isn't the last walk. It isn't the last meal. It isn't even the final breath. It's the last look. Imagine this. The room is almost completely quiet. Your dog has been resting for hours. Their breathing is slower now. You gently sit beside them, placing your hand where it has rested 1,000 times before. For a while, nothing happens. Then, almost unexpectedly, they open their eyes. Not halfway, not drowsily, but fully. They look directly at you, not through you, not around you, at you. For several long seconds, the world seems to stop. You forget the machines, the medicine, the clock on the wall. There is only you, and the dog who has shared your life. Many owners later describe this moment in remarkably similar ways. It felt like they knew. It felt like they were waiting for me. It felt like they were telling me it was okay. No one can truly know what a dog is thinking in those final moments. We should be careful not to claim certainty where science cannot. But there is something science does tell us. Researchers who study the human-animal bond have found that dogs continue to seek meaningful eye contact with the people they trust most, even during periods of physical decline. Veterinary hospice professionals also describe occasions near the end of life when some dogs experience brief periods of unexpected alertness and engagement, a phenomenon often referred to as terminal lucidity. Although it does not occur in every dog, when it does, families frequently describe it as a precious opportunity for one final moment of connection. Perhaps that is why this look stays with people forever. Not because it answers every question, but because it asks us to be completely present. If your dog ever gives you this quiet moment, don't spend it searching for the perfect words. You don't have to say something profound. You don't have to be strong. Simply be there. Hold their paw if they're comfortable. Stroke their head the way they've always loved. Let your voice become the sound that fills the room. Tell them they were a good dog. Tell them they changed your life. Tell them thank you. Dogs may never understand every word we speak, but throughout their lives, they've never listened only to words. They've always listened to the warmth behind your voice, the gentleness in your touch, and the peace they feel when you're close. If tears come, don't hide them. Love has never asked us to pretend we aren't hurting. Sometimes, crying is simply another way of saying, you mattered more to me than I can ever explain. And if the time comes when your faithful friend quietly closes their eyes while you're still beside them, remember this. Your dog was never counting the number of days they lived. They were counting something far more beautiful. The mornings they woke up beside you, the walks you took together, the gentle hands that never stopped reaching for them, the voice that always sounded like home. In the end, the greatest gift you can give your dog isn't finding a way to stop goodbye. It's making sure they never have to face it alone. Because when their journey finally comes to an end, the last thing they deserve to see is the face they loved most, yours. If you've noticed one or even several of these signs, don't let fear be the first thing that fills your heart. Let it be understanding. Because this video was never really about recognizing the end. It was about recognizing love in its quietest form. Our dogs don't measure life the way we do. They don't count birthdays. They don't worry about how much time is left. Instead, they fill each day with simple moments that most of us don't realize are becoming precious until they're memories. The sound of your footsteps coming home, your hand reaching down to stroke their head, the place beside your chair where they've always felt safe, the gentle voice that has been their favorite sound for an entire lifetime. One day, the leash may hang silently by the door. The food bowl may no longer need to be filled. The house may feel a little too quiet. But until that day comes, give your dog one more slow walk, one more gentle hug, one more quiet afternoon with nothing planned except being together. Because in the end, the greatest gift we can give our dogs isn't a longer life. It's making every day they have left feel completely surrounded by love. If your best friend is resting beside you right now, pause this video for just a moment. Scratch behind their ears. Tell them you love them. They may not understand every word, but they've understood your heart from the very beginning. And if your dog has already crossed the rainbow bridge, we'd be honored if you shared their name in the comments below. Every name tells the story of a life that changed someone's world forever. If this video helped you understand your dog a little more deeply, please consider subscribing to Canine Mind. We're here to celebrate the extraordinary bond between people and their dogs, one story, one discovery, and one quiet moment of love at a time. Until next time, give your dog an extra hug from all of us. They've been loving you every single day. Now they know you always understood them.